Welcome to McConnell's Pandemic Biology video blog, episode 2, the nitrogen cycle, which will be filmed just like the blockbuster film 1917 in one flawlessly choreographed and beautifully filmed take, because I don't want to learn how to edit. Now, I think we can all tell that there's fear in the air, but you know what there's more of? Nitrogen. Nitrogen is the major component of our atmosphere. But the nitrogen in the atmosphere doesn't do anything to help organisms directly. There's a series of steps covered in the nitrogen cycle that will help us with this. Now, in episode 1, we learned about how carbon dioxide is also increasing in the atmosphere, but it's a much smaller part of the atmosphere than nitrogen. And of course, as mentioned, fear. Because I mentioned on the remind that on Wednesday there's a quiz. And so, just like I'm fearful of compost looters, you have that fear about your quarter 4 homeschooling grade. So let's talk about the nitrogen cycle. Why do organisms need nitrogen? It's in the atmosphere, but they need it in their bodies. The reasons it's needed in the bodies are actually go well beyond this, but let's start with amino acids. Nitrogen's a major component of protein. Nucleic acids, which you also learned about earlier in the year in class. And of course, the most famous nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. And then energy, adenosine triphosphate, and the adenosine needs nitrogen. And how do they get it? From bacteria via plants. We are consumers, we're heterotrophs, and we eat plants. You see, we use plants for, the basis of the food web. And also toilet paper during this time. But let's take a little trip over to the compost pile where we can see the 4 main topics of the nitrogen cycle. See, in this compost pile, we're taking yard trimmings and turning it back into nitrogen-rich soil. The most important words when it comes to the nitrogen cycle: assimilation, which is how a plant, like this fake plant that I put in this compost pile to make it look more educational, would assimilate nitrogen via its roots. Some people in their gardens add fertilizer, but if you use compost, the nitrogen enters naturally. You see, bacteria do all of these other actions. Bacteria are responsible for fixation and decomposition. In a compost pile, the yard trimmings decompose and become nitrogen-rich soil. In nature, bacteria fix nitrogen. It's called nitrogen fixation directly into the roots of certain plants. Now, if we take a little look deeper into the compost pile, we can see increased, maybe. You're just going to have to imagine it, but trust me, this was an exciting compost pile and you're really missing out. Maybe in episode 3. Ammonification is another step. You see, once you start to decompose my yard trimming, bacteria will make ammonium. It's called ammonification. There's ammonium. And then bacteria will go on and make nitrates. Nitrates are a key component of fertilizer that you buy at the store. What can also happen, though, and this is a cycle, is nitrification. After that, some bacteria will do denitrification, which returns the nitrates to the atmosphere. Now, let's go take a look at a little summary of this exciting process. Here we see a drawing that I prepared so you can learn about the nitrogen as a cycle. Decomposition, ammonification, nitrification, making nitrates that can be assimilated into a plant. Now, in this realistic drawing of an animal, the plant goes into the animal. The animal, of course, can make manure, but also eventually animals die. And that begins the process of decomposition once again, and bacteria doing all the work, returning nitrates to the plants, entering animals, and then occasionally denitrification, as mentioned prior, returning this nitrogen to the atmosphere, creating what is a cycle. I hope you enjoyed this flawlessly filmed single take nitrogen cycle video.